Number 6. Homo floresiensis. Homo floresiensis, standing at only 106 centimeters tall, and with a brain size of approximately 417 cubic centimeters, was one of the smallest species in the hominin family. Despite its tiny size, it managed to survive in the dense forests of Flores Island, hunting prey like the stegodon, a dwarf elephant. This hominin's ability to craft tools and strategically hunt larger animals makes it a fascinating example of how a small brain can still support complex behavior. The small brain of Homo floresiensis suggests it lacked the sophisticated cognition that modern humans possess. However, its brain, although small, had specialized areas responsible for planning and decision-making, allowing it to perform tasks like tool-making. Its cognitive abilities would have been enough to navigate dense forests and create basic tools, but the small size also limited its ability to cope with environmental changes. This hominin likely relied heavily on its physical traits and survival strategies to survive, but it faced a critical limitation in adapting to new, unexpected threats. The overclocked brain. Though small, its brain had to be highly efficient, making use of every available part. This design allowed Homo floresiensis to develop simple tools and plan its hunts effectively. However, when larger predators and environmental shifts emerged, the small brain was unable to adapt quickly enough, leading to the eventual extinction of the species. Number 5. Homo naledi. Homo naledi, with a brain size of 465 to 560 cubic centimeters, had a brain slightly larger than that of Homo floresiensis, but still far smaller than modern humans. Discovered in the Rising Star Cave system in South Africa, this hominin was adapted for both walking upright and climbing. While Homo naledi was not a top predator, its ability to navigate complex cave systems and its climbing capabilities were crucial for evading danger. Despite its relatively small brain, the structure of Homo naledi's brain suggests it had advanced motor coordination and the ability to use tools. This brain capacity allowed for improved spatial memory and movement, which were essential for navigating caves and avoiding predators. However, the fact that Homo naledi relied heavily on caves for shelter and protection shows that its brain size and cognitive abilities weren't developed enough to make it an apex predator. The climbing hands. Homo naledi's hands and fingers were adapted for climbing, providing an edge in avoiding predators and accessing hard-to-reach places. However, while the species was well suited for escaping predators and hiding in caves, its cognitive abilities were limited. It could not develop more complex survival strategies that would have allowed it to thrive outside of its cave shelters, preventing it from becoming a dominant species. Number 4. Paranthropus boisei. Paranthropus boisei, or Nutcracker Man, had a brain size of about 500 to 550 cubic centimeters, which is larger than Homo naledi's brain, but still far smaller than modern humans. This hominin is best known for its massive jaw and teeth, designed for grinding tough vegetation. While it was not a predator in the traditional sense, it was highly specialized in feeding on fibrous plants, which allowed it to survive in environments where other species struggled to find food. The brain of Paranthropus boisei was specialized for processing fibrous plant material, particularly grasses and sedges. Its cognitive abilities were adapted to support the powerful jaw muscles needed to process this tough vegetation. Although its brain allowed for complex chewing movements, it lacked the flexibility to adapt to changes in food availability. As climate changes affected the habitats and food sources in its environment, Paranthropus boisei struggled to adapt, leading to its eventual extinction. The crushing jaw. The primary role of Paranthropus boisei's brain was to support the muscle power needed to grind tough plants. This adaptation allowed the species to thrive in a specific ecological niche. However, the extreme specialization in diet left the hominin vulnerable when its food sources became scarce. The species was unable to adapt its brain power to broader survival strategies, ultimately resulting in extinction when the environment changed. Number 3. Homo luzonensis. Homo luzonensis, with a brain size likely around 500 to 600 cubic centimeters, was another small hominin species that lived in isolation on the island of Luzon in the Philippines. This hominin was highly adapted to an arboreal lifestyle, with curved toes and small teeth that aided in climbing and escaping predators. Despite its relatively small brain, Homo luzonensis managed to thrive in its unique island environment. While not as cognitively advanced as other hominins, Homo luzonensis had enough brain capacity to manage the challenges of arboreal life. Its brain allowed it to coordinate complex movements necessary for climbing trees and evading predators. However, its limited intellectual abilities prevented it from becoming a top predator. Its survival strategies were based more on avoiding danger than on dominating other species. The curved toes. Homo luzonensis' curved toes allowed it to climb effectively, making it well suited for avoiding ground-based predators. However, This specialization in an arboreal lifestyle also limited its ability to adapt when environmental conditions on the island changed. With limited ability to survive outside of its tree-dwelling habitat, Homo luzonensis ultimately fell victim to environmental shifts and competition with other species, leading to its extinction. Number 2. Denisovan. The Ice Age giants, the Denisovans, with a brain size of about 1,420 cubic centimeters, were much larger and more cognitively advanced than the hominins previously discussed. These Ice Age giants were adapted to survive in some of the harshest environments on Earth, particularly at high altitudes and in freezing cold temperatures. The Denisovans' large brains allowed them to develop advanced strategies for surviving in extreme environments. The brain of the Denisovans was large enough to support complex social structures and survival strategies, including hunting and tool-making. The species' adaptation to high-altitude living is thought to have been facilitated by a genetic mutation known as the EPAS1 gene, which allowed them to thrive in low-oxygen environments. Their cognitive abilities were highly advanced, enabling them to form complex social groups and work together to hunt large prey in the unforgiving conditions of the Ice Age. The EPAS1 gene. This genetic adaptation allowed Denisovans to survive in high-altitude environments, which most other species could not. However, the Denisovans' reliance on high-altitude environments left them vulnerable, as environmental changes, such as warming climates, reduced the habitats in which they thrived. Their specialization ultimately contributed to their extinction, as they were unable to adapt quickly enough to the changing world around them. Number 6. Homo juluensis. Homo juluensis, a newly proposed hominin, had an enormous brain size of approximately 1,700 cubic centimeters, larger than even modern humans. This species, thought to have lived in East Asia, represents the pinnacle of brain evolution in prehistoric history. With a brain larger than any hominin before it, Homo juluensis had the cognitive capabilities to dominate its environment in ways that no other species could. The large brain of Homo juluensis allowed for advanced cognitive functions, including complex problem-solving, social organization, and sophisticated tool-making. With a brain that surpassed even Neanderthals and modern humans in size, Homo juluensis would have had an unmatched ability to plan hunts, organize social structures, and develop tools for a variety of survival needs. The increased cognitive power likely gave Homo juluensis a strategic edge over its competitors. The 1,700 cubic centimeters brain. This massive brain allowed Homo juluensis to develop complex survival strategies, making it one of the most dominant apex predators of its time. However, the massive energy demands of maintaining such a large brain could have been the species' downfall. The metabolic needs of this giant brain required abundant resources, and as the environment changed and food became less predictable, Homo juluensis may have struggled to sustain its large brain. The inability to adapt to these changes ultimately led to their extinction. As we've seen, the evolution of brain size in these prehistoric hominins led to a fascinating range of adaptations, survival strategies, and eventual downfalls. Each species played a crucial role in the story of human evolution. But, as we've learned, even the most specialized adaptations can't always overcome environmental changes. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the evolution of brain size and the incredible hominins that once roamed the Earth, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating insights into prehistoric life and evolution. Stay curious, and we'll see you in the next video.